Hello, guys, and welcome to the next episode of my podcast, Deep Talks. Today with Sha-En. Hi, Sha-En.
Hi, Peter. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so grateful to have you here today. And for the little introduction, you are a happiness scientist.
Yes.
You have a background in positive psychology. You were studying in Penn University in the US, and your mission is to enhance well-being for all of us. And you are a top voice on LinkedIn. And I checked that we already had more than 100 common connections. So
That's
Singapore
amazing.
is so small.
It sure is. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and in the speaking world, we have connections globally as well, I'm sure.
Yes, that's it. So let me start. So positive psychology. So what do you think? What is the main mission of positive psychology, and how all of us, how we can harness this mission?
Yeah, I think, when you think about traditional psychology, most people think of going to a psychologist, sitting on a couch and pouring out all your troubles. And in that sense, it is problem focused. We are trying to find out what's wrong with people. And then if something is wrong, let's fix it. And that's why we have therapy and interventions and all of that. And that's still useful for people who are struggling with severe mental health or really just need to solve their suffering in the moment. But that's also a small percentage if you think about it, right, of human beings. In the grand scheme of things, maybe 9 to 12% of the world may be struggling with a severe mental health issue. And so that leaves 90% out of the world. And the question we are asking in positive psychology is what's right with them? What is it about them that allows them to thrive and flourish in the current spaces that they occupy? And so that's where the shift is. We want to investigate and use the research to understand what makes them thrive. And from there, if we gain the insights, then we can use that to share with everyone on how to lead a life that you want to live.
Oh, that's great, because honestly speaking, positive psychology changed my life a lot. And I remember when I met Martin Seligman 8 years ago in person in Germany, and it was truly like a life-changing experience.
Yes.
And for me, the switch from the focus on problems to focus on what we can improve is truly profound.
Yes.
So tell me, what is the main difference between just positive thinking and positive psychology? Because a lot of people, they sometimes misuse those two words, and it's a huge problem, I think. So can you explain to me the main difference between just positive thinking and positive psychology?
Yeah, I would say that positive thinking is like a subset in the sense that, a lot of things start in the mind, and it's with our thoughts, right? So if we have a thought that today is going to be a good day, it might show up in our emotions. We feel good, we go out, we meet someone, and it's already inside that mental framework.
Right.
And so the thoughts are important, but I think the challenge is that most people just think that that's enough. Positive thought without action is not going to produce the outcomes that you hope for. And so a lot of positive psychology is focused on the interventions and the strategies that we do end up using that is supported by the research.
Right.
So for example, I could think that I'm grateful today. I could think it. But if I don't do anything about it, it would benefit me, yes, because I thought about it, but will it generate into impacting other people as well on a sustainable basis?
Okay.
Right? So it might be that I take it one step further and I say, Peter, thank you so much for having me here today. Like, I'm so grateful that it was a sunny day because I managed to get here without getting drenched.
Singapore is always beautiful weather. But a little fun fact. What is the translation of your name?
So my name is Sha-En, and in Chinese that translates to Shan. En, and Shan in Chinese means kindness, and En means gratitude.
This is so perfect. So you don't need to change your mindset. You have everything in your name already coded.
Yeah, I did ask my mom whether she thought about what those two Chinese characters meant. And she said, no, I wanted to call you Sean. And then you came out as a girl, and I was like, what do I do now?
But it truly describes like the secret of long-term life satisfaction, right?
Yeah.
Those two things.
Yeah.
Like what more?
Yeah, looking out for people by being kind, of course, start with ourselves, and then, being grateful for the things that we have in life.
Yeah, I call this that kindness is my let's say like religion 2.0 because it connects all religions together, because in the bottom of all religions there is kindness there, like the golden rule, to help others, to be humble. So this is a beautiful name.
Thank you so much.
So tell me, like we start with the topic of mindset, because a lot of people, I think that they already understand that it's all about the mindset, the beginning of the journey. When you have negative mindset, like when you are pessimistic, when you sometimes feel hopeless, what is the first step that we can do?
You know, I always tell people I'm a reformed optimist because I didn't start off being all happy like this, right? I mean, in my secondary school years, I was bullied for quite a number of years, and I haven't had a very pessimistic outlook. I often told myself, like, is this it?
Really?
Like, life sucks, man. Why is everyone picking on me? You know, all these things, like what's happening to me, it's all my fault. I don't think I'm going to have friends. I don't think I'm going to do well in school. I had all these pessimistic thoughts, right? And
well, even with this name.
Yeah, can you imagine? Right, so I want to say this because for people who look at someone like me who looks vibrant and joyful, they may be thinking that's how she was born.
Okay, so it's not about genes, right?
Right, exactly. And even if you do have genes that perhaps came down from the generation before or generations before, it was something that you can actually take action on, right? And that was something that I learned through those years, because I had a teacher who did tell me, you know, Sha-En, you can choose the way you respond to the bullies. You can choose. I didn't feel like I could, but she said, you can choose. And she asked me to just smile a bit more every day and start looking for the good things around me. And that's gratitude, right? Yeah, but that was like my first, I guess, informal foray into positive psychology. That was something that I could do for myself to shift the way that I look at the world.
Okay, so the beginning was the teacher.
Yes.
And he basically told you that you have power to choose.
Yes.
So I truly love one quote that is attributed to Henry Ford, and it follows like this: like, whether you think that you can or whether you think that you can't, in both situations you are right.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of people, they are 100% sure that they can't.
Yes.
And they are stuck in those same patterns of thinking and then behavioral. So the first step is to realize that you have power to choose.
Yes.
And what's the next step?
The next step is to challenge some of those thoughts, right? And when I say challenge, for example, you think, I'm lousy because I failed on this project. Well, don't accept it straight away, because sometimes our mind's playing tricks on us. You know, we have a negative bias, right? Yes. And therefore we are paying attention to this negative thought more so than we would a positive thought. So before we absorb it and say like, oh, this is mine, like I really suck, I'm lousy, I think the first thing we need to do is challenge and say, hey, okay, what makes you think that you are? What is the evidence that you are? And you'll find tons, because that's already how you're looking at it. Yes. But then let's balance it up. Hey, where are the times when you have been successful? Where are the times where people have said things about you that were great? Where are the times when your project was actually amazing? And we'll find a lot more, because we are asking a different question. And so our attention now shifts to those moments of success. And if we balance it up, then we'll come to realize that, yes, we've made mistakes, we all do, but we have also succeeded on so many counts. And to me, that is the kickstart. If we keep on challenging some of these negative thoughts and balance up the equation, we'll start to find that there are a lot of good things. Okay. And then we be a bit more conscious about shifting the focus, right? By asking a different question. What's going well in my life?
Yeah. Honestly speaking, I read one study back then, like it was 12 years ago, about some positive psychology interventions. Yes. And one of those interventions was a gratitude journal.
Right.
To note down 3 positive things daily or things that you are grateful for. And I do that for 12 years now. Every day, 100% days I have filled in.
That's amazing.
This is truly like one of those life-changing tools that I truly encourage people to use. So what are any other, maybe some new updated tools that positive psychology uses for those interventions?
I think there are some foundational tools that I always use, which is like to practice just being present and aware, to notice not just what's in your mind, because we talk about mindset, but we can't separate the mind from how we feel, our heart. Right. We can't separate it from how the body feels, the soma, right? And so recently what I've been particularly interested in is how these 3 connect. And so many of us are sometimes so disconnected from our heart space, and we intellectualize everything. So beyond the thoughts, I would say, ask yourself, how are you feeling when something happens? And maybe we'll struggle at first to name the emotion because we're not so proficient in it. And maybe I'm generalizing, but in this part of the world in Asia, we're not really open with our emotions, whether expressing it, right? We feel it, but we don't express it a lot, or we swallow it up.
But in Eastern or Central Europe, it's even worse.
Oh, wow.
Post-communist countries, they are unable to express emotions,
right, yes.
And they are very pessimistic. So we truly need some of those interventions too.
Yeah.
But here in Asia, like you have the history of mindfulness meditation, like you have a lot of Buddhist temples. So why people are unable to know this? Because like it's from the East, those techniques. It's not a Western thing.
Yes, and I got asked that question very early when I first graduated from Penn. Like, I was confronted by a workshop participant who asked me, have you become American now just because you studied overseas? Then it was like, why don't you quote Confucius? Why do you quote Martin Seligman? And I said that I think what the West has done is actually translate some of the teachings into very tangible steps. Right. And it's not that the Eastern practice don't work, they do. But they are often so fundamental. And sometimes when we read it, we think, I'm doing this. But actually, it's not. We aren't truly really going deep into it.
Right.
So if I tell somebody, just be present, they'll just be like, just looking at me like, so what do I do now?
They have heard that like 100 times. So
precisely.
How to be in a present moment? Like it's so difficult because mind is constantly mind wandering somewhere else.
Yeah.
And even for me, I know all those research on mindfulness meditation, and still it's so difficult to be in a present moment.
Right. Exactly.
With all those distractions, cell phones.
Yeah. First, I mean, it's about noticing that there are three parts, right? The mind thoughts, the emotions, and then the body. And then when you do notice your mind wandering, let's not judge. Because we judge our mind wandering, like, you see, I'm distracted again, you see? And then that judgment takes you out of whatever, and then you go into this negative loop. So we don't judge. We say, I'm noticing that I'm distracted. Let me come back and pay attention. So it's a practice. And I started off maybe with 30 seconds, just staying quiet and noticing. And then slowly, like a muscle, if you practice it, you become better at becoming aware. And how does this link to well-being? I think the sooner we can notice some of these symptoms that happen in our body and all that, the more we can choose our response, because we are more aware now that somebody is saying something and my gut is already responding that I don't like it. Right.
I know that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's a very common experience, but many of us dismiss the gut and be like, no. Like, I have to be like that because I'm in the workplace. And granted, yes, sometimes you have to do that, but you need to then go back to that maybe when you have a bit more space and say, hey, what was that all about? Let me just be curious about it. And maybe you'll find that, hey, that person was crossing a value that you believe in, and you don't like that. And the more we know ourselves, the more we feel in control, right? And that's well-being because we don't feel like we are a victim anymore. We are taking control of our thoughts and our emotions and our inner world.
Yeah, and I saw that you have very big clients from the corporate world. So how this resonates with them? Because the average corporate culture is not about showing your emotions that much. So how it resonates with big corporations?
I'm really grateful because many of these corporations that approach me have already been following me for a while on social media. And they said there's something different about what you do. And when I ask them what it is, they always say it's because you go where a lot of trainers don't dare to go. And that is to address the heart space, right? And that I actually talk about these things. Because most people would just give them a list of like 10 things to do to make yourself feel better.
Yes.
And then you're met with a wall because they will all say, I've tried these 10 things before and it didn't work.
Right, yeah.
But I break it down to let them know like, why didn't it work? And here's how it can work. And a lot of the time, it's when we get into the heart space where we create environment where we have permission to explore. And so I create this space.
Safety, right?
Yeah, I create a space and I share my own stories of my own challenges. I share my past experiences. And then I give them permission to be themselves. I give them permission to share their truth. And it doesn't come straight away, right? Because safety is not something you build up in 1 minute. But I spend a lot of time in the beginning of every talk that I give to prime them. I say, I'm not perfect. and we don't expect everyone to be. But I'm here to tell you that I'm also a human in progress.
Right.
But I just
everyone is.
Right.
Yeah.
And I just happen to have gone to a great university and learned this research and continue to do so. And I want to share it with you. But I'm always happy to hear your perspective about what worked for you or what didn't. And let's work on it together. And so I think that's why my clients come back to me, that I'm not just the run-of-the-mill Google 10 ways to be happy. Now, give it to you.
Yeah. Usually very useless, right?
Yeah.
And usually like those articles are full of those pink glasses, like sometimes we refer this as toxic positivity.
Yes, exactly.
So what is the problem of being toxic positive? Like if you are just positive?
Yeah, I mean, we are human. We go through struggle. If we only talk about the positive side of life, it means that we don't acknowledge, or in some cases, we even dismiss somebody's suffering. So, for example, I went to this workplace and was giving a talk, and the leader asked, Sha-En, how do I respond to a staff member whose pet passed away?
Wow, very tough
And I was
one.
like, you could be toxically positive and be like, well, there's always another pet to get. And sometimes people feel anxious and they don't know what to say. Do they say, well, it's okay, there are thousands of dogs out there. But that would be an awful, uncaring response.
Lacking empathy, right?
Right, exactly. And that's where I think positivity must be nuanced. We need to see the context that we're in, and we need to interface with the person that's in front of us. If the person is looking really sad, I think we need to meet them where they are.
Yes.
Right? And that is, wow, your pet must have meant a lot to you. I'm so sorry.
Sometimes those deep negative emotions are so crucial because they basically give you a feedback that you need to change something. For example, if you are sad many days in a row, maybe you should think like, why? What is the reason? Not to put pink glasses and trying to overcome that with just a positive mindset, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's one of the reasons why many of these negative emotions are viewed by people as being shameful and therefore not shared.
Right.
It's like, I shouldn't show this at work today because I need to always be on my best.
Right.
Right. And of course, I mean, there's always a line, you don't want people, I think people are worried about these big emotions because they're afraid that they'll go there and take over the entire meeting just trying to listen to your problems. So there is a fine line, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't show any of these emotions at work at all. Yeah.
Maybe it's better not to judge emotions at all, to divide them between positive and negative.
Yeah.
Maybe there are just emotions that are interesting and you can explore them, like even deep sadness when someone passes away. It's so important in your life to realize like what is the value of life and where are your own values.
True.
So for me, like all emotions are interesting, and especially those deep emotions that you can truly feel in your body.
Yeah, exactly.
And not to ignore them.
Yeah.
Because if you ignore those negative emotions or those strong emotions, you can easily get to the situation of burnout. I read some research that here in Singapore, a lot of students, they have some struggles with burnout. So can you discuss this topic of mental health of young people?
Yeah, so some of the rising trends for the young people, academic burnout, specifically related to getting high and good results, because we are still quite an achievement-oriented, right? And then the other one is, of course, anxiety. And again, tied to results, academic anxiety. But of course, on the rise are things like self-harming, cyber, climate anxiety, which the young people are feeling a lot more than the generations before, and then depression. So these are the three main challenges that our young people are facing.
We have some new data from my country, and it's very alarming. Like 30 to 40% of young people, they have a mild or major depression.
Oh my goodness.
30 to 30. It's
like
a huge
throw a
number,
stone,
right?
1 in 3. That's very high. Yeah.
So what do you think? What we as a society can do to help those kids, because this is a huge problem, not just for recent days, but for the future.
For sure, yeah. I mean, I always look at it as segments. So like as a parent, when you have a young person with you, judge less, listen more. Because it's so easy to judge from your vantage point, but you are not living their life and you have not been through the struggles that they've been through. You have been through your struggles, not to discount yours, but they're not the same. So for example, if I were to go to a young person and said, last time we didn't have all this Singapore river was very dirty and now it's clean. Like, they'll be like, that's not what I see. That's not my reality. Like your grandparent lived through that, and it's not relevant. And if it's not relevant, it doesn't click. Instead, we could be curious and compassionate as we ask them, hey, what are the struggles that you are facing in your world? And they'll probably say things like, I go on social media and everyone's life looks amazing. I'm studying so hard, and people keep telling me to put in effort. I put in so much effort, and I'm still getting shitty results. These are the real challenges. Right. And so we need to judge less and listen more as the adults in their life. You know?
I'm very grateful from attitude of my parents, because when I was 16, I told them that I want to buy an electric guitar and I want to play in a punk band. And my father, back then, he was a professor. Back then, he was a president of local university. And I was playing in a punk band. And they were zero judgmental. Sometimes they even visited our concerts.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I was 16 years old, and it was truly one of the best periods of my life. So even though they were, my father was a very high achiever, but they left me follow my own dreams.
That's amazing. So, here, and I was at a parenting talk recently and was talking about strengths, So the other thing that we can do, I think, is to focus on the strengths of the young people.
Right.
There's so much misconception that they're strawberries because they bruise easily, right? But you look at what they're going through. Are they really bruising easily, or it's just, there's just a lot that they are experiencing,
I truly hate the definition of those snowflakes.
It's all these very derogatory terms.
Yes. The world outside is truly tough.
It is.
Like now with AI, with those all algorithms that are shaping our lives.
Yeah.
So
you don't even know what's real sometimes. Right. And they are inheriting a world that they did not create. So you can imagine they're thinking to themselves, 50 years from now, I'm going to be in my 70s, and the world looks like it's crashing down now. Like, how the hell am I going to get there? It's all that.
And everything is changing quicker and quicker.
Yeah.
So it's like a roller coaster.
Correct. And for young people who are just graduating, inflation is at all-time highs. So financial anxiety is another big one that I'm seeing in those who are, graduating.
So the first part was how to be a better parent. But what is your main advice to those kids?
For the kids?
For the kids, yes.
I would say talk to somebody if you experience something. Because the typical logical way is to hide everything and keep it inside, because you may think, I don't want to bother anyone. Yeah. Everyone around me seems to be going through the same thing, so there's no point in talking about it. But so I think talk to someone about it, someone that you trust. At least you need to get it out of your system and not, everything inside thinking, I've got to manage this all by myself. You're not alone, right? And of course, that means, and I always have this phrase about safety, the courage to speak up must be met with safety. So we can encourage them to speak up, but besides the parents, like the teachers or the institutions that surround them, the environment must also be able to receive this speaking up. Right? Otherwise, it's just going to be like hitting a wall. And then they'll get jaded and cynical. Right? Yeah, and stay connected with people, because we all know that connection is such a life-giving force. Right? Yeah.
I read on your LinkedIn that one of your clients is TikTok.
Yes.
So do they realize that they have a huge influence on mental health of those kids?
I mean, I can't comment for the entire organization. And I worked with a small team at the time. Yeah, but I think they're trying to do something about it.
It's so important.
But sometimes it goes out of their hands so quick, because people, someone puts something out and within seconds it's viral.
That's it. Yeah.
And they do have a team, I think, on trust and safety that's trying to manage. But they are also human beings behind the team, right? So maybe AI can play a role, I'm sure, right? Technology.
But nowadays, it's not just TikTok. It's all those social media platforms are similar. Like Facebook has and Instagram has Reels. YouTube has Shorts. So it's just the copy of TikTok.
And it's proliferation. That is the challenge as well. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Everything.
And it's highly addictive.
Yes.
So when I check my phone, I always have videos of hydraulic pressing some food or crazy things, and I'm like watching that, and I'm like, okay, what's there more?
But what we can do with young people, which I'm trying with my two daughters. I have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old, And I'm trying to teach them the skill of discernment. Learning to discern what is the way to spend your time and what you consume. Because we all know that what we consume becomes what fills our mind. And what fills our mind becomes how we show up in the world.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to work through them. It's not an easy skill to teach. It's quite a high, I would say, a fairly high order skill. But if we can say, for example, when you are to notice, again, comes back to that mindful presence. When you have spent 30 minutes doom scrolling on your phone, how does that make you feel? And is that how you want to spend your time?
Yes.
You know, so I'm trying, and it's an uphill battle, I would say, because it's so addictive and it shoots all the dopamine in our brain.
Right,
right?
yes.
But I'm hoping that the more I ask them these questions, that they'll realize, oh yeah, actually, I could have been out at the park.
And let me ask you, are they on social media already?
One of them's on Instagram, but not TikTok. Right. And then the other one doesn't even have a phone yet because she's 10.
Yeah,
so
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So social media, like you are also an influencer. So you are using social media.
Yes.
So how to balance our time when we are creators, like how to be better with social media?
Yeah. I mean, I find that social media platform is a way to get our message out there. But I've also seen that we need to be mindful about how it impacts us, just like for the kids, right? And recently we've been having this discussion, like if you put yourself out there, yes, people get to know you, but you also end up getting trolls who say all kinds of things to you in private message, which is bad for your own mental health. If you spend too much time on that, you could get caught up in the comparison trap. And then start envying everyone and forget about what you're doing.
You can always find someone who has more followers than you and is a top voice. Come on.
You know, and so for me, I always just tell myself, well, if I notice myself comparing, I'll notice it. Okay,
yes.
Yeah, I feel that I'm disappointed that I'm not in that list of whatever that thing is. Okay, I notice it and I'm human. I have feelings, right? And then I'll be like, hey, but is that really important to me?
Right.
It's not that important to me. What's important to me is that my message comes out clear to the people who need to hear it. And so I go back to that, right? Yeah. And so, yes, this person has got this channel, whatever, and I'm just starting on my YouTube channel. And I'm like, it's okay. They've been doing this for 3 years. And I'm just starting out. So I think as creators, we also need to be mindful of that for our own mental health. And don't get caught up in this whole, like, doing it just for the sake of doing it or doing it just to have more likes.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. So I think that the solution is more to focus on the whole purpose.
Yes, exactly.
So as you said, like to put the message out for people, they need to hear that and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, and then to scale up the purpose.
Right, exactly. And I think, dig deep into your own path.
Right.
Right. Not everybody's path is meant for you.
Yes.
You have your own, so why not carve it the way that you want it? Right? And then you'll be more authentic and aligned with who you are anyway, as you do that.
You now focus on what part of positive psychology? Like, what is your most favorite thing?
Okay. I think that most people come to me for two big topics. One is how to manage their stress, because stress is everywhere. And the other one is burnout. Right?
Wow, and those are very connected.
Very, very connected. And I guess the end outcome that everybody wants is that they just want to have a good life, right? And so to me, I've always been just passionate about empowering people with tangible, effective tools so that they can live their best possible life.
Yeah.
It just so happens that there are all these things that get in the way, right? Toxic workplace, stress, anxiety, negative self-talk, all these things are like modern day threats. Right? So for me, that's the end goal. If everybody, who wants to achieve a happy or well-lived life, can I give them the tools to navigate all these threats?
Okay.
And then we can overcome them.
So let's dive into some of those. So what to do when you have a toxic boss? Toxic boss, what to do with that? Because it's so common and
deep breath.
So difficult, right?
Agree. Yeah, so I would say, first of all, to understand what is the impact it's having on you, right? So if let's say you're new to the job, new to the company, number one, first of all, understand, you need to know where this person is too, and then you need to understand the impact it has on you. Okay, and I always say this: no job is worth sacrificing your sanity, because the amount of recovery time you're going to need after that.
Yeah, and even not any relationship.
Right, exactly.
It's the same, like.
Yes, it's the same. It's the same, you know. And so, but I know that also there will be a lot of people who maybe don't have this option. Yeah, and if you don't have the option to walk away, then it's about drawing your boundary line really clear, right? You know, what is it you can accept? What is it you can't? And you need to know it clearly, because other people are not going to have to, they are not going to exercise the boundary for you. You need to know where that is, right? And if you need to, when, you know, it's very close to that line, you have to step away to recover, replenish and rejuvenate, right? And of course, if you have to stay where you are with that toxic boss, I would say go and get support, right? I'm just saying that if you can't leave. But if you have the option to switch out of that environment or that person, then please do.
According to positive psychology, are there any practical tools how you can practice like the courage to say no and to set those boundaries?
Yes, start small. Start to say no in low stakes situations. Hey, Peter, want to go for coffee?
Okay, no.
Right?
I only drink tea.
Right, exactly. And maybe that is difficult for most people. Then maybe try it with someone that is not at the office first, so that you have comfort. It's like building a muscle. Right. If you say no to something small and you practice it every day, then by the time it comes to the medium thing or the big thing, it's familiar. It's not like, oh, I need to say no to my boss for this project straight away. There's too many steps to climb in such a short frame of time, right? And so for me, I practice saying no, either by text or, you know, or LinkedIn message sometimes, right? And, you know, if you start practicing it, you get better at it. And then when it comes down to the big one, you have a bit more confidence to say no.
I love this strategy of small steps, because you can deploy this strategy in many different domains.
Yeah.
Building habits, building trust, and the courage to say no is one of those. Thank you for that. Then you mentioned the negative self-talk, like how to handle that one.
Yeah, so we talked about that in terms of the mindset earlier, and I would say like challenge the thought. Or another way for people who are more visual is put the thought, write it out onto a piece of paper, or you want to put it up on your computer screen and you ask yourself, is that thought helpful or harmful? And you have to ask yourself that real question. And sometimes it can be helpful in a sense that people always say this, you know, they say it like, oh, you know, when I think bad things about myself, it motivates me to the next level of achievement. Okay, I mean, if that's helping you in some way, fine. But just be aware that it is helping you in that particular way rather than succumbing to it, right? Wow. So it's more about being in control rather than saying, I don't want that thought, I'm going to push that thought, you know.
This is so amazing. I never heard about this tool. So you just put the idea or the thought on a paper and ask yourself, helpful or harmful?
Yeah. And you have a choice because we can choose our response. And some of our thoughts are actually helping us, even though they are harmful, because we have decided that we want that push. Right. So
it's not that easy, right?
Right, yeah,
so
exactly.
Sometimes it's very complex.
Yes, exactly. So like back to the toxic boss, you have a thought, I should just quit now and then. But then if we put it on paper and we ask ourselves, is it helpful or harmful?
Both.
Right? It's both, right? So, but you get to choose in this moment, how do I want to respond to this situation that I'm in? If I choose to go with, it's helpful because if I respond in this way, it's going to help me, whatever. And we all make all these reasons, right?
Right.
Yeah, but it's also harming me because at the end of the day, I'm so shacked out and I doubt myself. So we have to choose, you know, is the impact greater on the harm side or is the impact greater on the helpful side? And at least we have that point of awareness.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
The awareness is the first step, right? So tell me, like, the burnout. Burnout is a very common word. Yeah. But can you define burnout from the scientific perspective? And what is the real definition according to science?
Yeah, I mean, it is characterized by three main things. One is exhaustion. So you know how people say, I'm so tired, it's like become everywhere, that we don't pay attention to it. But when we talk about exhaustion, we're talking about not just physical exhaustion, we're also talking about mental and emotional exhaustion. So for example, you think of, oh, I want to do this idea. And then like 2 minutes later, you're like, man, I don't think I can do that. So that's like a sign of mental exhaustion. It's not that you don't have ideas anymore, but it's like the thought of trying to do it. It's like,
Completely squeezed.
Yeah, exactly. So you are exhausted. Okay, so like the candle is snuffed out. Like you can't. And then the other one is inefficacy, meaning that you feel like you can't do the things as well as you used to, as effectively as you used to, right? Maybe you're taking longer to do your to-do list. Like you don't seem to be making any movement in that email that you're supposed to write. 30
and
minutes.
it's not a typical procrastination.
Yeah, it's not, right? And then the last one is what we call cynicism. You start to feel that whatever you do doesn't matter. Like, what's the point?
Okay.
So getting to that hopeless, almost.
Yeah, it sounds like learned helplessness,
yes,
right?
Yes, exactly. And so when these three collide, we say it's burnout. These three, right? So exhaustion, cynicism, inefficacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what is the first 8? How do we?
Yeah. So, I mean, first, we always go back to awareness. We observe how we are experiencing this, because most people, I like this metaphor. It's like the frog is in water and it feels very happy because it's a natural place for the frog to be. But then without realizing it, actually the water is getting warmer and warmer and warmer, and slowly the frog is cooked without realizing it. And burnout can be very insidious that way. So that first step of observing is actually really important. Yes. We need to know how we are experiencing it, right? And then the next part is that we can be a bit more intentional about where we are spending our time on the things that we're doing. How is it impacting us? What's draining us? What's bringing us joy, right? And that's where we can be intentional about taking action. But then we also need to conserve, just like a battery. If it has only 2% left, you're probably not going to watch that YouTube video. Right. You'll leave it to send a really important message to someone that you need to. So again, that thing about boundaries, that thing about saying no, we got to think of ourselves that way as well, that we are conserving this energy for ourselves to do the things that we truly want to do instead of spreading ourselves so thin, right? And then replenish. Take time to rest. Right. Yeah. Everyone's just like on this treadmill that's never ending. And if you don't replenish, then where are you going to get all that energy to manage the exhaustion? Right? Yeah.
I also love the allegory with the battery. Right. And I heard a beautiful story that sometimes like you have broken battery and you're trying to recharge it. Yeah. And it simply doesn't work because the battery is already broken. So sometimes you need to buy a new battery. Yeah. And what it means is to have a long vacation or to have a few weeks off to completely restart everything. Because if you are trying to change things, but you are in the process, so it's very difficult to do a major step and to do a major change in your life. Yeah. But sometimes you need a long time to relax.
You do.
Yeah. Yes. So that's why I go every year for 1 month long trip to Japan. I do nothing there.
Your favorite. No.
And this is a definition of my freedom. Like I am an entrepreneur since I was 19. But the real definition of my freedom is not to be like let's say, a slave in your own company, because all entrepreneurs are like that. Like they are working very hard, sometimes 12 hours, 14 hours a day, and they can't leave. And that's not a freedom. For me, the definition of freedom is 1 month in Japan every year. Nice.
I take almost 2 months off per year. Every half a year, I take a month off. Yeah. Yeah, because as you said, right? If I'm talking about living a full and happy life, then I walk the talk.
Congratulations. We are those happy ones. Yes. Another very important topic of recent world is purpose, especially purpose at work. Yeah. Because when I used to live in the US, I lived near Wall Street, and there is a beautiful study on people on Wall Street, basically, that they have one of the highest level of depression, and the outcome of the study was that the source is lacking the purpose. Right. Yeah. So what we can do to uncover our purpose, because this is truly core of my work, and I'm trying to help people to find their purpose. So my purpose is to help others to find purpose. But I'm very, very keen on like, what are your views on purpose?
Yeah. So to me, purpose is like the fuel that comes from within. It drives us, and and actually all of us probably have it stirring. It's just that we have learned how not to listen to it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like we are not responding to it. So we have a gut feeling and we're like, that's not practical in this world. Then you kind of stuff it down. And then you continue doing that practical thing. So like Wall Street, right? They're all there, they make money because these are the standard ways we measure our success. But purpose is not about the standard ways. It's about what is driving you as a human. And all of us may all different. Yeah, but I think first step, listen to what are all these little things coming towards you from within, because that's the fuel. And to me, it's like you said, finding purpose. Some people don't even think about it. Right?
Of course.
There's just this narrative and they just walk it. But then they hit a certain age and they're like, meh, what is all this for? Or they have an illness, which of course is really sad. And then they start contemplating what is their purpose, right? So
sometimes it's too late.
Yeah.
Sometimes we realize those things like when we are experiencing those near-death experiences. But sometimes we still have plenty of time in front of us.
Yes.
So I think that you can start to live your purpose from today, and it's still worth.
Yeah. But the question you asked, how do I find? A lot of young people or mid-career would say, where do I even start? I don't even know. So I often define it as big picture purpose, which is, I'm going to save the world. I want world peace. I want the icebergs in Antarctica not to melt, right? Big picture, which is great, but not everyone needs to have a big picture purpose. And I call it small picture purpose.
It's detached with those small steps. So you need to connect small steps with those big things, right?
Exactly. And if everybody did big picture purpose but doesn't know where to start, nobody will get there. So the question I always ask is, what can I contribute to today in my immediate environment? Right? So if I'm at the workplace, what is something I feel strongly about that I can contribute to? And that could be using my strengths, it could be using my ideas, my talent, my energy, whatever it is. And you find that is already bringing first level connection. And it's in front of you. You don't need to go to Antarctica to find your purpose. I know some of us go away to discover ourselves, but we can also start day to day, And just because someone has the big picture purpose does not make your small picture purpose devalued. That's a very important message.
Oh, that's it, yeah.
Because
not to compare if it comes in terms of purpose, right?
Right. So for example, a mother would tell me my purpose is to spend time with my children. Yeah. And I'm like, awesome.
Awesome, right?
But in the world, sometimes that is seen as you're just doing what you're supposed to do. Just be a mom. But come on, a mom that spends time is raising a child who is stable and will contribute positively to the world. It's how we frame it that makes a huge difference on purpose.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when it comes to purpose, how you think about your own purpose? This is my favorite question of this podcast because it's called Deep Talks.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you about your purpose.
Yeah, I came into positive psychology because I watched a video about the program at UPenn, and then I just started crying. I didn't have any explanation why, but I just thought, it's touching me. I feel touched by this. And so I allowed myself to explore it. What is this thing called positive psychology? Where can I learn more about it? And that's how I ended up at UPenn, right? Because I said, oh, wow, I feel it from inside. And this is talking to me in a way like nothing else has. And it still continues to do so, which is why I'm still 13 years in this industry, right? And so to me, I often respond to that fuel. And of course, maybe the modality changes. For example, now I want to do more video. Not because I think I look great on camera, but I think maybe that's a way to deliver on the purpose.
That's it.
It gets the message out there to people in a way that's different from what I've been doing. So the purpose remains very grounded, but maybe the modality changes, right? Or I'm writing my book, right?
Really?
And so, that's also another way for the purpose to get out there, my purpose, right? And then hopefully it can impact people.
And tell me, honestly, how easy is writing for you?
It's not easy at all. It's I think, and you talk about deep talks, it's making me go back in time to parts of my life that I have forgotten or not wanted to access. And that in itself is a beautiful journey. A bit painful at times because it triggers certain things. But I think as I'm doing that, I'm getting to a deeper level with my audience, I think, when I'm writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have any like personal stories in there in your book?
Yeah, absolutely.
And can you share some of those for our listeners before the book is published?
Yeah. So one of them was I was really young and I was bobbing for apples. And it was a happy moment. But then as I was trying to recall more happy moments to talk about in the chapter on like finding your joy, I realized that I've forgotten what happens from 5, which was where the apples happened, to about 10.
Okay.
And that prompted, that's 5 years, right? And I couldn't remember.
No positive memories from.
Yeah, I couldn't remember a lot of it. So I started asking myself, wow, what happened during those times, right? Did I block it out? You know, and I've been going to therapy as well. And as we unpack it, I realized that I did remember certain things. For example, I had a certain cake every single year on my birthday, right? But then there were also moments where my parents were also not getting along. And so I had blocked out almost everything. Right. And this is what I want to put in the book, that in the journey towards happiness and well-being, you will encounter all these different parts of yourself. And what I hope for people to acknowledge is that there are parts and they're all part of us. Let's not deny some and only show some to the world. Right? Because we are actually whole people.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of stories that I will be elaborating more in the book. Yeah.
I really appreciate that you have the courage as a happiness scientist to share with us that you also visit in therapy. So this is so important because I'm also visiting psychotherapy and most of my clients are visiting psychotherapy. So I think that it's common for all of us in these days. And it's very important to have the courage to share this with others.
Yeah, but I always think about the audience, right? Because I think a lot of people still have a stigma around mental health.
Yes, that's
like,
it.
I need to deal with it by myself. Talking to someone is a sign of weakness. But to me, it's a sign of actually self-awareness.
Exactly.
And that takes courage and strength. And so if you're doing that, you are recognizing that there are some parts that, you know, we can't solve every problem. We need a network, we need relationships, we need people in our lives, you know. Yeah.
Okay. And let me ask you about one more thing, because I usually discuss a topic of values. Like, what are your core values that you believe that are somehow shaping your world and life?
Yeah, great question. Number one, like you, freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah. So I was in a job before I came out to do my own business, and I was teaching. And by right, teaching is a meaningful career. Or at least a lot of people say that. But I was out of alignment.
And who were your students?
They were 10, 11, 12-year-olds.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, they were awesome. They were very cute. I enjoyed, like, they asked amazing questions. And I loved the teaching part of it. But there were so many other things that I felt were not what I wanted to do. Right? So I was out of alignment in what was, quote-unquote, a meaningful career. Right? And so I left. Right? And when I left, I felt free. Because now I'm not having to subscribe to this box that I was in. Yeah, so number one value is freedom. And as an entrepreneur, just like you, I can create my life exactly or design my life exactly the way that I want it to. Right? If I don't want to take this project, I'll say no. If I want to do it and it doesn't pay me much, I'll do it because I want to do it. Yes. Right? If I want to travel here and speak, I'll do it, you know, things like that. So freedom is my number one value.
Love that.
Yeah. Love is number 2. Yeah. So I mean, I'm very sensitive as well, and I feel a lot. And for me, love is not just about romantic love. It is about those micro moments of love, caring for someone. Maybe it's my name again, like kindness, right? Gratitude. And so yeah, I'm always driven by that. You know, how can I show up as a more loving person in this world? It's not always easy because there's all kinds of people around who will tell you otherwise, you know, but I think it's something that I keep coming back to, you know, and I reflect on a lot. Yeah.
And I think that kindness is also one of those sources of longevity. There is some science behind that.
Yeah.
And Singapore is one of those places that you have the longest average lifespan around the globe, like 84. We only have 79 in Central Europe. So do you think that like longevity is somehow connected with the whole Asian culture, or what do you think? Like, what are your views on longevity here in Singapore?
I mean, the longest study from Harvard says that the greatest contributor are strong, high-quality relationships. And I think here in Singapore, we are I wouldn't say we're very collectivist, but the whole idea of the we is quite strong, right? Meaning that, and it can cut both ways, of course. Like on the one hand, it's supportive because we are around each other, we connect with each other, and we take relatives and family members into consideration when we're making decisions, right? But of course, it can go the other way when you take too much of that and forget about who you are. But that's maybe a separate conversation. But I think that having that network of relationships around actually supports the longevity because you have someone to remind you, hey, are you going for the appointment, right? Yeah. And because we have such a strong sense of filial piety, which is meaning that you think about the generation before and everything that they've done for you, and you want to give back because you know that they probably went through a lot to bring you to this stage of adulthood. And so that whole idea of respect your elder, give back, also forms this loop of connectivity, which I think maybe contributes to the longevity.
This is so interesting because in my little bit simplistic view, like we both live in the US and US is like me first.
Yes.
Especially with Trump, make America great again. And West is a little bit selfish. East is a little bit sometimes too much selfless.
Yes.
And I think that we should combine both.
Absolutely.
Like, to have a huge community, but sometimes to have a courage to say no even to your own parents when you don't want to follow their path that they want for you.
Yeah, I can't remember when this interview was, and someone did ask me, what would you do? What advice can you give to Singaporeans who want to be happier? I'll say, be a little bit more protective of yourself.
Right. Yes.
And that's a bit controversial to say in a very Asian society because we always think about someone else before ourselves. But I think for me, and I put it on LinkedIn as well, like it's time to redefine kindness. It isn't just about sacrificing yourself for the good of someone else. If it comes at a cost, and that means that you're going to feel resentful, you're going to be angry, you're going to doubt yourself, you're going to think that I don't even matter, then that's not a healthy sense of self either. Yeah. So as we move from, I guess, a very communal, collectivist thing, we also need to find space where you're right. We can disagree with our parents. We can say no to certain requests that a person who is elder than us says. Yes. And it's because we are secure in who we are and we understand this is protecting our energy, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's still a fairly new concept.
It is, but it's also grounded in science because I truly love the book Give and Take from Adam Grant.
Yes.
And he's basically defining those takers and givers. And what he says is that the ideal ratio is somewhere in the middle to be what he calls like a healthy giver.
Yes.
If you are like unhealthy giver, if you want to help everyone and if you don't have the courage to say no, or if you are sacrificing yourself, as you mentioned, then you can end with the burnout and you are not living your own life.
Correct.
But if you are too selfish, then sometimes, come on, you are let's say an asshole. And it's also not a solution. So combine those two virtues, like selfish and selfless, and combine them together. It's somehow for me the solution of long life satisfaction.
Yeah. And I struggled with it a lot in the past 2 years because my dad's been not well. And that brought up a lot of all this like, I need to be there for him. But then I'm also trying to grow my business. And I'm like, does it mean I don't live my life? Am I supposed to be devoted to his care all the time? And the Asian part of me, or like that, that guilt part of me was saying, no, you need to be there with him all the time. You need to take him to all his appointments and he's suffering and he's done so much for you, that guilt-tripping so-called feeling. But at the same time, like, hey, but I've worked pretty damn hard to build a business that I love and a life that I want. And so where do I find this balance? So I had all this turmoil in my head. I talked to a lot of people about it. And the conclusion I came to was, I've got to know that there are times in the course of the life where I need to attend to my dad or whoever's aging because it's important. And there are times when I need to be out there, be free to grow what I love. Yes. And that's my business. And so, when I do that without guilt, either way. Because if you carry guilt from both ways, then you might as well just not do it. Right?
Sha-En, I truly love how honest and open you are, because this is so crucial, like, to share those stories, because all of us, we have those struggles, like to find the right balance between being selfish, selfless. And sometimes people are truly lost. They don't know what to choose. And this story was truly, truly important. So thank you for that.
Thank you for asking.
So let me a little bit sum up the whole session, the whole interview for our listeners. So can you somehow give them like the 2 or 3 top advices for better mental health, for greater life satisfaction? What are like top 3 advices from you to sum up the whole conversation?
Okay, 1 is to practice being really present so that you can cultivate your awareness. And with awareness, you have more freedom to choose the way you want to respond or to live. Right? Perfect. So that is, to me, it is a skill in progress for me. Right? It requires, space and then all of that. Second is to look around and appreciate what you already have. I think we don't do that often enough. And it seems so simple, but I'm all for simplicity is fundamental to our well-being. We sometimes overcomplicate things. Like we need this new gadget, this new app. I mean, okay, they're all well and good. But if we would just wake up every morning and ask ourselves, what is something that's going well in my life today? I woke up. I have hair. Simple.
And I live. I just live. And
someone pressed the lift door for me this morning, right? Simple things. And I think simple we get things. Into that practice.
I love simplicity.
We shift the way we look at the world, which shifts how we feel, which shifts how we show up. Right? And to me, that's number 2.
And the last one?
And the last one is relationships matter. And sometimes, and a part of my book is, the one chapter in my book is, we've lost sight of what matters. And to me, relationships are fundamental to our well-being. Not just research proves it. We know it. We went through the pandemic, and why were we all struggling? It's because we didn't have that relationship connection. So take time to nurture it, and if possible, put it into your schedule. Because I think if it's not in your schedule to connect with someone, then you're gonna just say, next week lah. Let's do it another time, right? And I've had that experience where that time didn't come, right, with a person who's close to me. And to me, it's, you want to look back in regret, or you want to say, hey, I realized this matters to me. Let's do it now, right? Tomorrow, next week, right? So yeah.
Dear Sha-En, thank you so much for the interview. I definitely put this into my gratitude journal for today.
Me too.
And it was not a little thing, it was huge, because we covered like all those important ideas. Man, so thank you so much for that.
Thank you again for having me.
I'll hopefully see you soon.
Yes,
and
for sure.
With our
I'll
listeners,
put it in my schedule, Peter.
Yes, please. And with our listeners, guys, thank you so much that you are listening to this podcast, and feel free to share it with some of your friends and to help us to spread this important message. So take care, guys. Bye.
See ya.